do you think it's so difficult for FE to really break into doing some of this stuff when you hear some of the stories about young lads in their bedroom being so successful and just getting on and doing it?
Well, it's on, or am I up? Yes? No? I think a number of reasons, mainly because I think the key's in the word think, and that, from my experience of the last 2 years working on FELTAG and trying to bring about a change in the way that the system thinks, is the biggest challenge, and that's about mindset. And if you think about it, it's understandable, isn't it, that the FE system, which I spent most of my working life in, was predicated and built upon the results of the Industrial Revolution, if you think about it, you know. Actually, it wasn't the government that started FE, and it certainly wasn't employers that started FE. The history of FE is that it was the workers and the people who decided to build the schools and the colleges so they could educate themselves and the kids and the community and everything like that. It was the state really didn't get involved until, you know, the middle of the 20th century. So if we've got a system that's designed on a mechanised process and an industrial revolution, I would suggest the thinking behind that is not suitable to prepare the system to prepare for a digital age. So I think the key in the Think Out Loud Club, and the reason why I'm such a follower and supporter, is that it challenges the system to think differently. And I think that's what FELTAG's doing as well. FELTAG, is not a 10% tick box exercise. It's a culture change. It's, as Brian has said in his graphic, it's a movement. And if you think about the FELTAG themes, leadership and vision, infrastructure, workforce skills, using the students, employer relationship, and it's all about and regulation of funding. It's all about challenging the thinking that goes behind how we fund the FE system, because at the moment, the thinking in the civil service, the thinking in the Ofsted, the thinking in the skills funding agency is still very analogue. Yeah. So I think the more we can put pressure on, and it's certainly not connected because it's still in silos. I mean, Christ, have you ever tried getting the DFE to talk to Biz, for example, before we, get into that? So I think this movement. It's about thinking out loud, it's about challenging the status quo and not accepting when we get responses from the Skills Funding Agency and Ofsted and from the governors and the principals of colleges. I've been talking to some colleagues whose principals still don't get it. It's about challenging the way that they think, and I think this really helps. Good, thanks for that, Bob. Would anybody else like to come in on some of what Bob said there? I think you've covered a lot of ground. Sarah, sorry, pick on you for given your background and what's your view of what Bob's just. I will do that, by the way. I will pick on people in the audience. I should have probably just warned you of that. But
Bob and I have had quite a few conversations about this because my initial sort of worry was that there weren't enough resources in colleges to make this exciting stuff happen. It's great, all this dead exciting stuff that's going on, but if there aren't the stuff. If there isn't the resources to do it, it's sort of irrelevant. We've talked quite a bit about the use of funding within colleges and perhaps the shift from creating these beautiful colleges that are all shiny and gorgeous to putting some of that money into creating sort of more digitally aware colleges.
Are you almost saying, and you heard it here first, a college without walls type concept?
I am, very much so.
Quickly trademark City and Guilds College without walls. But no, I think you're right. I think, there's a different mix, there's a different blend of pace, time and place that I think we need to rethink. FE.
You find it's already trademarked.
Yeah, I gave it them. So no, I think that's a really good point. I mean, but you mentioned about resources. I'd just like to bring in Jonathan, because obviously one of the things that Jonathan talked, and I think really impressed certainly me and some of the comments that I was reading after he'd spoken, really you just broke those boundaries and just ignored the resource issue in a way and overcame the resource issue in a matter of months to a scale that made all of our eyes water. So to a certain extent, do you agree that resource is the barrier?
It's not to make little of the fact that you're not getting supported by one's institution, because it can drop people in lots of trouble. I got away with it, didn't I? I was the first one, in lots of respects, I was sort of a first one out the gate sort of thing, and made enough noise in retrospect for the institution to turn around and sort of have to take notice. And it wasn't as though they could say, well, you shouldn't do that. I was able to point at it and say, no, the game's changed completely, and they recognise that. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to criticise people who perhaps sort of turn around and say, oh, why don't you just do it anyway? It's free to use Twitter and YouTube and so on. But that said, when the classroom is connected, when the students are using these spaces like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all the other spaces they're using, I mean, who are the right people to teach them how to use those spaces, if not us? We should be teachers in and of those digital environments.
Yeah.
But that takes a bit of learning as well. So it's kind of a peer learning situation. Yeah. How do I best use this space? And I do it all the time. I'm rubbish at Facebook, if that's reasonable to say, but my students are, on the whole, very good at it.
Yeah.
So I'll go to them, and in fact, I pushed the YouTube. In fact, I think Ollie's in charge of the Facebook page for Phonar this year. Are you?
No.
Oh, okay.
You are now.
Who's manning that? Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't really answer your question, but little things like social bookmarking, perhaps, or tweeting. They're really easy to pick up.
But I think what you're also touching on there is a combination of yes about resources, yes about leadership, and somebody asked me a question before for a bit of a soundbite on the video. What do I think is one of the biggest barriers for FE? I think it's fear, and I think in a way underlying what you're saying there, Jonathan, is a bit around fear. Do you want to come in on that?
It's what Bob was saying about the 10. I'm really going through at the moment about this 10% tick box. It's doing my head in.
Yeah.
Is that curriculum area managers are going, yeah, we'll do FELTAG, we're really excited, but we'll just do 10%. And how can we just do 10%? And in their heads, it's just another box to tick.
Yeah, and that's a shame. That's not the spirit.
The bigger ticket.
Yeah.
And it's not fear. I think some of it's fear, but I think it's just that they've got so much to do that they're going, another thing, and they're not seeing the bigger picture. Exactly what Bob's saying is they're not seeing that 50. They're not seeing actually the no walls. They're just going, I teach motor vehicle. Yeah. How I've got to do 10%. Right, that will do. Tick. Now let's move on to the next thing. And I think that's the trouble.
Well, let's come back to Bob then, given you've made a specific FELTAG comment, because you're right. I think the danger is that people will see FELTAG as we don't want to make this about FELTAG, but I think Bob summed it up for me. And I've had mixed feelings about FELTAG along the way, and Bob knows that on some of the recommendations. But ultimately, it is a movement. It is a movement for change for good. And actually, it's not down to FELTAG or a report to make that happen. It's down to us. It's down to leaders in the education and skills sector, and down to us in FE to make that happen. But Bob, what's your...
Well, I'll make a prediction that those providers, and we have to say providers rather than colleges because there are more... I mean, I've just been a judge. Just this weekend, I've gone through 28 entries, some of the providers here, for the TES FE Awards. Sarah and I are on the judging panel. And of the 28 entries, 22 of them mentioned the impact of FELTAG on their submissions and what they're doing. So that's the good news, because it means it's getting traction. But my prediction is this, that those colleges and providers who embody and embed the FELTAG spirit in their strategic decision-making over the next few years will be the ones that will survive and thrive, and those that won't. And I predict that of the 450 FE colleges and providers that we've got now, in 10 years' time we'll have half as many of those, but we'll have twice as many learners.
Yeah, and we'll have different models of delivery like the... Good, that seems to... Good, we like that one. Just going back to the video, the work that Yusuf shared with us and the views on the video and YouTube. Reading College are here. I think we've got both Paul and... Have we got... we've got you both. So I don't know who wants to comment, but I mean, you're doing some great things, aren't you, at Reading at the moment? Do you want to say a little bit more where you are? Well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been experimenting a lot. I think what certainly my learning point has been the rate at which we've been able to innovate and bring about change in a relatively short space of time. Recently, we've hosted 2 colleges coming down to visit, And in fact, we had a visit on Friday as well by a Chinese delegation. And actually, they were just amazed at how quickly things are changing and the speed and the pace. And I think it's reflected in our learning environment, it's reflected in the technologies we're using and mobile devices. And really, students are leading the way through our digital student group. And colleagues are here today with starting digital projects around Google Glass. But, once you gain a momentum, that's the start of the real journey.
And have you had some of these leadership issues, though, where you've had tutors really almost saying, walking away from it and saying, sorry, that's not what teaching's about for us? Or
I would say we've shifted the balance. It started out just a few innovators really having a go and trying things out with free or low-cost technology, but the balance has shifted so much, and I would say they're in the majority now. We've still got a minority to shift, but once you gain that kind of critical mass, the change just happens so quickly. And as I say, the rate of progress you're able to make is just astounding.
Great, brilliant, good. Anybody else want to make any comments on what we've just been? You can. Do you want to? You possibly do.
Do you want the microphone?
You do a bit.
I do.
Here you will.
Oh no, you don't want me to do that. Hello, I'm Paul Newman. Also from Reading. One of the things I think we've worked really hard on is the mindset, it's the growth mindset, that kind of concept. And I think I see my job, probably shouldn't say this on camera, but it's about taking risks and breaking rules, not following you can't do that. Why can't I do that? Because that's not what we've done before. So we've gone mad. I can see Google Glasses looking at me everywhere just because we're going to try it. If it doesn't work, do you know what? We'll learn that Google Glass isn't for our students. But if we don't try it, we really won't know. And it's the same with all the wearable technologies. We're thinking, do I buy another pallet of bricks, which will help students build walls? Of course it will. But if I can get our students to have that bricklaying experience in the workplace, they're definitely less likely, I guess, to have the experience of using Google Glass in the workplace. And so it's about picking those things to invest in and not having a rigid kind of agenda of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Just experiment, trying to sort of stimulate kind of the inquiring mind and just give people have some fun. And our Google Plus feeds, you can see Dax at the plumbing show with his Google Glass on. He was at a plumbing show at the Chelsea Stadium, Stamford Bridge, and he had as many people talking to him about Google Glass as people were talking about the latest products in the plumbing industry.
Great.
So, I think it's that open mindset, and that's, certainly Cheryl and the Pass It On team, and there's a growing understanding that actually this is the way we need to be, and none more so than in our students. Absolutely lap it up.
No, I think
so there's a credit to the team, really.
Good. I think that's a really good point, actually, Paul. And I think we'll bring Google in now. Is Adam around? I'll come to you second, Adam. But I think not only have you been a great advert for Google, which I'm sure Adam will be delighted. Probably a better salesperson for Google than any of you were for the telephone features. But we won't go back over that. But I suppose for me, and I suppose Adam, from an industry perspective, what is it that you see as the barrier between what you're trying to do in industry and innovate and what you foresee happening in education?
Thank you. So I think, first of all, my adverts in the room in terms of Yusuf, Paul, Dax, these guys are trying something different. I think that's really to be encouraged. I think if I were to segment you guys, you're the innovators, you're the ones that are really pushing the envelope. I think what I'm starting to see in terms of coming across from industry is the things that have worked, have been proven. So you mentioned the use of Google+, Google Apps for Education, management Chromebooks. That's where we're really starting to see the adoption in education, because they sell themselves. We don't need salespeople in a way, because if it's successful, if it works, teachers will tell each other about it, and that's the ultimate complement and success for our products. We do see some of that coming over from industry in terms of those specific tools, coming from the likes of Jaguar Land Rover, working with Warwickshire College. We had the conversation earlier that with the Warwickshire College guys, it's really about selecting the best tool, the right tool for the job, not the one that's the flavour of the moment or the thing that has worked stably for the last 10 years. It's really having the ability to select the best possible tool for that particular teaching challenge, or empowering those students to learn for themselves.
Great, thanks, Adam. And I hope one of you students don't mind helping me out here. But I mean, you can all speak at once, or one of you can offer. But I mean, how does it feel for you if you think? I mean, obviously you're studying now, so you're in Warwickshire, so you're getting the opportunity to work with, as you've heard from Adam, a much more innovative college. But what do you imagine it might look like for your kids if you ever have them? You know, when they may go to college in 15, 20, 25 years' time. What do you think it might look like? Who wants to have a go at that? Oh, well done.
I think it'd be really cool, to be honest. Like new technology and everything. I'd just like to see what it'd be about. You know, like don't really know what to say, but.
But you think it'd be very different to what you experience now? Even?
Yeah. Like, well, considering in the last 5 years what technology's done,
yeah,
it would be amazing to see what it would be like in the future. Like.
Yeah, so you could be a learner living somewhere in a completely different part of the world or the land, enrolled in a college that you might physically never go to, but supported by all these wonderful resources that you saw and heard about today, for example. Good, okay. Anybody else got any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
I am at BASPA University, and I'm a PhD student there. And I follow this Think Out Loud because I just love it, and I think it's really amazing. But I always feel like I hear further education, colleges, vocational education. What about universities? I feel always like we're a little bit left, yeah. And I would, if I'm an invited speaker in a lecture that I will give in January, and I would like to really include all of these things, because teachers that you are, BASPA is very special for teacher education. I mean, they are really the ones who I think need to break the rules, as you said, and just innovate with their students, because that's kind of, so I always feel a little bit, universities were kind of,
No, I think actually, that, would deserve, if I could clap with my, I would clap to that, because I think you're right, what we do need to do is create a much more inclusive agenda. I think some of the problems we've had is universities have allowed themselves to be treated a little bit outside on the edge. It may not be your experience, but I think that's probably been felt like the experience that's being had by many people, and for a long time the FE world didn't have a spotlight on it, and yet a lot of the funding and a lot of the policy and the drive was with universities. But nonetheless, your point is absolutely valid, which is what we should be talking about here is a whole connected experience that goes all the way from school right through college, right through into university. Sorry,
I've got one here. No, I was just going to add regarding the comment regarding the university. If you think about it, can we have a surgeon that was working 30 years ago to show up today and walk into a hospital and carry out an operation? Will the equipment look exactly the same 30 years ago to today? What about 50 years ago? What did hospitals look like 100 years ago? But look at schools and look at the difference over the last 100 years. And we think still it's acceptable to come with old skills and carry on being a teacher. And I think sooner or later, I think that will have to disappear, and that will disappear, because, if you can't write or read, you can't be a teacher. I think if you can't use technology to communicate... You can't be a teacher either. Thank you, well done. Here we go, an extra point for university. But this is what will happen. So I think it's going to happen sooner or later, and people that don't actually, like Cheryl, my colleague, was describing, people that are still shifting at the back, they will end up with no jobs. It's going to be as simple as that. We're living in a tough world now, and look at when you have a vacancy, how many people apply. So, and this is really, really important. But I just want to touch on something regarding the online learning. We're talking about online learning as the solution to amazing teaching. Think about it in your colleges. You can still have a teacher standing in front of a group of students, and they can have a miserable time. Your students can still have a miserable time online if you don't plan it carefully.
Absolutely.
And whether we like it or not, a lot of them do. And it's about how you plan your course and do it so that they have fun online. And this is going to be a massive. So when people talk about the 10% and FELTAG and all that, a lot of managers, some managers, not a lot of managers, will look at it as a way of reducing their costs. Because they won't have to employ that many teachers. But what will happen to the success? It's about the right mix, and I think Bob always say, you may have a course that is taught 100% in a classroom, and you may have a course that is 50%, and you may have a course that is 100% online. Does that make sense? So I think it's got to be about the curriculum and about having fun.
Great, and I think, again, Cheryl's just tweeted up the College Without Walls of the Future. As I say, you heard it first here. I was going to say, over here, Bob, and then I'll come.
Yeah, okay, there's just a line where it's just a big one. You've probably heard this, I've seen it on Twitter. Technology will never, ever replace teachers, but teachers who use technology well will replace teachers who don't.
Very good point. Another clap, Bob. Bob's definitely going to win a prize for claps tonight, I think. Sorry, and then we'll
just
to you.
just a couple of things, really. Just to pick up on the things that people from Reading were saying about embracing technology and using it and sort of feeding it through. That's a great sort of model. The opposite end, and what I find at our college, is the 10% end, where on the individual learner record there's now a field to tick whether you meet that 10% or not. The skeptic in me thinks that actually, you know, sooner or later the SFA are going to look at that and that'll have an impact on funding. So we're in a dichotomy here, really, where the staff that I work with are not digital natives. They're trying to embrace this technology that they're not comfortable with, alongside all the group profiles, all the self-assessment reports, everything else that they've got to do to achieve outstanding, because at the end of the day, that's the thing that they're judged against. That's the stick that's there to I don't want to use this word, but to beat them, but it is. And I think that the staff really don't know where to go. If I come back to Adam's point, in 10 years' time, you know, the staff of the future won't have the issues that the staff of today have, because they will have grown up with that technology.
Yeah.
However, we're in a changing period where staff are feeling threatened to, of course you can, and I hope you will, where staff are feeling really threatened to actually embrace whatever 10% it is, or whatever the perception of this is, and it's not going to meet everybody's needs. But I agree, and I'm here because I'm an advocate of technology, but I'm a realist. And I work with staff every single day that feel threatened, not just about the 10%, but about everything that's going on and around in FE. Our sickness rate at our college is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Because of the pressure.
Because of the pressure. Something like, I don't know, 61% last year. It was unbelievable. And you know, all of this just adds. I don't know how you can deliver a quality provision when there's so much pressure on staff.
Well, let's get Bob to answer that, and I'll have a few thoughts.
I understand completely, and I'm vice chair of governors of a college that's going through exactly the same process, and you know, I've got a couple of grievances at the moment because of redundancy processes that are going on, which people in their minds think is related to FELTAG, etc., etc., etc. Nothing could be further from the truth. I think the issue about the 10%, the ILR, what's the ILR for? It's for the Skills Funding Agency to get a check of what's going on. And if I'm honest with you, is there anybody from the Skills Funding Agency? No. They absolutely don't understand what's going on. They have no idea what's going on. And you know, if I tell you in the FELTAG negotiations behind this, they had to be dragged screaming and fighting towards the thing, same as Ofsted, same as Ofqual, and actually it's same as most of the biz civil servants as well. But that's another story. So the ILR is to get them some intelligence to make some decisions. But let me just disabuse you one fact. FELTAG is about increasing the number of teachers, not getting less. It might be, as Sarah says, selling off some of the underused, half-used, non-used buildings and glass palaces that currently exist and that are half empty fully for 25 weeks of the year and empty 50% for the other rest of the week. But in terms of teachers, I think the ministerial view, Matt Hancock's view, would be same number or more teachers working differently but twice as many learners. But we don't need them troopsing up the hill to Barnsley every day, do we? So I know it's a battle and it's in people's mind, but surely that's where governors and leaders come in, isn't it? Leadership is about saying, this is the vision, this is the way forward. Now, we're trying to disabuse the SFA of the fact that actually, most of you in this room know, online learning will be more expensive in the first instance because we have to invest in the infrastructure, the staff skills and everything like that. However, the economies of scale don't come from getting rid of teachers, they come from having more learners.
So, I mean, I think maybe some other people want to comment on that. I think just let me, and then I'll bring you back in again. No, don't be sorry. It's a good debate, and I think we knew it'd be on people's mind, which is why we did put a focus on FELTAG. I mean, just to really support what Bob's saying, I mean, there are examples right now that we probably can't talk about, but will come out in future inspections of where we're doing things that breaking the boundaries of learning technology that are definitely having a positive impact on taking someone's grade from a low grade to a higher grade. And once Ofsted see that, and I'm sounding like an advert for Ofsted, by the way, I don't mean to be, but once they see that movement happening in that way, then you tend to find that sort of rather over-viscerous sort of approach drops away. So I think it's back to Bob's point, it's down to us to lead and push back a movement. Then I think we'll find we won't get it all our own way, but actually rather than having it done to us, we can influence how it's done. So I do feel that quite strongly, that's something on us and incumbent on us to try and do. But go on, sorry, you wanted to...
I think providing that we don't lose the fact and the whole point about why our learners actually come to our college.
Yep.
They come to our college because they want to interact with people, they want to be theoretically taught or whatever that may be. If they had the skills to learn online independently, 10%, 50%, whatever it's going to be, they go and do an OU. But even the Open University has tutorials, has that face-to-face contact. And I think somewhere in the mix, we need to recognise that and look at, you know, the learners that we have and why they come to college or why they come to their learning organisation.
Or why they're part of a community. Maybe that's the part of a community.
What they want.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I don't know whether that gets lost in the melee of funding and you know, the wider picture.
Okay, well, thanks for that thought. Okay, I'm just conscious now. I want to sort of move on now to Mark's session around badging. Not least, we're going to have a bit of a moment of unveiling our badge winners. We have had some badges created today, which is fantastic. You'll be pleased to know. But I think it is interesting building on from what you were just saying, because if you think about what Jonathan talked about, which is about how you can just create not just abracadabra, but how you can create this scale and how you can create this access to something that previously had been or appeared inaccessible to other learners. And if you take what Yusuf talked about, which was about, well, if someone can do it in their bedroom to the scale that he's done it, and if, you know, YouTube can create the platform on which we can actually share and curate content, and when you get to badging, and if badging is the way in which we can recognise lots of people's different ability at lots of different levels, surely we have a new ecosystem here. And if you think about all the precious resources that sit inside your colleges, you think about all those lecturers, those tutors, that content, that rich variety of stuff that you've got that we tend, and I'm making a generalisation, we tend to go like that to, no one else is getting their hands on. If we went like that, and we applied a sort of a Jonathan's dominant logic and a Yusuf's dominant logic and then a Mark's dominant logic, we would have a completely different ecosystem to support RFE. Anyway, that makes it all sound so easy, but that's what struck me as I've listened to some of the things this afternoon. So back to you, Mark, and I'm going to bring you in now, that's okay. You said something which really struck me, which was the value is going to be in those who get behind it, and that is really what we're starting to talk about here. The theme I'm picking up here is a momentum and a movement that we need to create. But that really struck me as a thought of the day, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the idea project has been really interesting for me, just to watch. First of all, how industry are open to this approach, which I wasn't sure that they would be, but they are. And then the other thing is just kind of watching the badges that the young people are taking, and we're kind of keeping a real close eye on, and they're not choosing the ones necessarily that I would imagine them to take. And certainly talking to industry, I'm seeing that they're seeing just real skills gaps, and they're really keen to get a direct connection. And that whole thing about ecosystem for me, and for the talent that you know, they need teachers. Young people need guidance. They need support. They need confidence, and they're not going to get that anywhere else but through colleges and schools.
Yeah.
Education.
So it's how we can create that connection.
So,
Brian, I know badges is something very close to your heart, and you're doing a lot of work for us inside City and Guilds on that. But if you've got a perspective you want to share.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by badges, and I think it's really interesting to look at, you know, just even in the last year, how I think the badges chat has turned from one of, oh, what's badges? What's that? To I know what badges are now. How do I get started with them? You know what I mean? So it seems that we've moved on quite a bit. But what fascinates me about them is, why are they different? Why is it a different game? And I suppose if you plug it into the world that you, Jonathan, give us a glimpse into, where it's a network with different rules, where the power of peer means something different when there's 35,000 peers. You know what I mean? That offers opportunity, I think, and offers, I suppose, a different platform to experiment within, for us as City and Guilds, certainly, but also for colleges. So I think badges badges are going to run and run, in terms of the experiments that the various institutions are going to do,
And I think somebody once said to me very recently, because badges are very recent, in the last sort of 18 months, are you not frightened by them? City and Guilds, awarding organisation, does it not scare you? And I was like, no, bring it on. It's a fantastic new way in which we can demonstrate the relevance, the industry relevance, so much so that our new Tech Back programme, which we've just launched this year, is basically, as well as obviously being built around the actual professional technical qualification, badging will be part of that support framework for that very reason. So I agree with you. There's more to come on that, I think.